Hey, what's up guys? Garden here, coming to you guys with a deck profile of my premium Blaster deck. Yeah, quite excited to show you guys this deck because a few of you guys were actually requesting for this deck. And yeah, this deck's actually really fun, and I'd probably say that this is actually my favorite deck in premium. Yeah, it's really fun just to be able to play a plethora of different blasters that we have in this format. And there's a lot of nostalgia as well because I've got things like Blaster Blade Exceed again, I've got Blaster Barcgal. Yeah, a lot of familiar faces and some new faces as well, thanks to Standard. Yeah, without further ado, we have the deck in front of you all, so you can see the list that I'm playing in case you just want to like a snapshot of the deck. But I'll also have the names of all the units in the description as usual. But without further ado, we'll get stuck into the list. So first of all, we're playing for grade 3s, 4 copies of Messianic Lord Blaster, the 3 copies of Blaster Blade Exceed, and then the 1 copy of Blaster Llew. So I went with 3 Exceed, mainly just because I like the fact that I've got the 4 Messianic and then the 3 Exceed for more consistency when it comes to like an ultimate stride or just paying the cost of something like Agnos. I think that's quite important there. But also, Exceed's actually pretty good for the retire. A Counterblast 1 to retire any grade 1 or greater unit on your opponent's rearguard circle is actually pretty nice and quite a nice toolkit retire to have. So yeah, I quite like having the 3 Exceed there just because it's pretty much the backup ride target if we don't see Messianic, but also just a generally good effect overall when it comes to retiring. But then, of course, the 4 Messianic is pretty much a no-brainer. We're getting the Imaginary Gift Force, and we have the ability to OTK with them. For anyone that's familiar with the Standard deck, of course, because we have more blasters available in Premium, it's a lot more consistent to get that OTK and get his effect up to 6 critical. So pretty damn nice. Pretty damn nice. It is very RNG though, because if your opponent has a perfect guard, then they're just going to stop it. But if you don't notice them get one from like the drive check, then I would just say go for it and just see what happens, because either they've drew into one or they just didn't have one at all, and they're probably just going to die. So I think that's a good chance to take, especially when it means you might win that turn. So yeah, definitely very powerful. But if they do have the perfect guard and you know about it, as long as you have the option to, of course, I just go into a stride at that point just to apply more pressure with things like the Saint of Twin Sword G unit and just get more multi-attacks going to yeah, pressure the opponent with high numbers. So yeah, as cool as it is to have an OTK in this deck, just bear in mind what your opponent has and try keep track of it. I think I've made a mistake where I didn't keep track of it before and I couldn't remember what they had, so I just went for the safe play and just went for a G unit turn that way. Whereas I think I could have went for Messianic skill and actually won, but yeah, it's just it's a nice thing to have, and I think it's really fun. It's not fun for the opponent to get OTK'd, but it's fun for me, and I like that. So yeah, and then the 1 Llew, of course, is just because it can recycle Blaster Blade units, and also it's just another Blaster name as well, so that's that. So for grade 2s, we have the 4 Blaster Blade, of course. I was actually thinking about playing only 3 of him, just because I felt like he was only needed for the late game. But just in terms of consistency, I think it's important to play 4 of him still, just because he's just an important piece to play in this deck, especially for things like Floral, Paladin, Flogal. So yeah, I think it's just safer just to play the 4. And also, it means that you have more of him available to call with the countercharge of Barcgal. So I think that's also really cool. But also, that's another aspect about this deck, is that because you've got so many different blaster units, you have quite a variety of ways to retire rear guards in this deck, with things like, you know, the Javelin, the Exceed, Blaster Blade can retire, Blaster Dark retires. Yeah, there's a lot of different retiring aspects that this deck has, so I quite like that as well. It's like aggro push, but also a little bit of control, which I think is really cool to have. So yeah, the next grade 2 we have is 3 copies of Blaster Rapier. Kept calling a Javelin in my standard profile, which I apologize for, but yes, this is Blaster Rapier. So she's basically the OTT blaster unit, you could say. So when it attacks a Vanguard, you have a blaster. Yeah, when it attacks a Vanguard, if you have a Blaster Vanguard, you can check the top of your deck and decide to keep that card on the top or the bottom. So that's pretty cool. You know, stacking your deck is always a good thing. But it just makes it things like Messianic skill more consistent to go off. So if you see there's a new blaster on the top of your deck that you don't have, you can then twin drive it to get it onto the board to make Messianic skill active. So that's really cool. But the other thing that I really like with Rapier is the fact that if you have 6 different blasters in your field, continuous skill, it gets 15,000 power, and that's both yours and your opponent's turns. So a 25,000 beat stick just by having 6 blasters in your field, which is a lot easier to do in Premium. That's pretty damn nice. Pretty damn nice indeed. Because if your TK ain't gonna work, you might as well just bash your opponent with huge columns. So yeah, Rapier being able to stack the deck and just hit with huge numbers is very, very nice. So definitely like playing 3. And then we have 2 copies of Blaster Dark. And Blaster Dark is quite nice for a ride target, because the cool thing with him is that not only do you have access to the Twin Drive from him by discarding a card if your opponent has no rear guards, but if you're against a deck that plays Forerunner for their starter, you can actually punish them if they don't take into mind that you play Blaster Dark, which, you know, if you're against a good player, they should take that into mind. Because you could always just retire their Forerunner. So something like Gold, for example, with Criff, if they don't call an extra rear guard down, you could just outright get rid of Criff and just ruin that play altogether. And that's something I really like about Blaster Dark. So it is technically the best ride target we have in this deck, but I didn't want to play more than 2 of it, just because in terms of ratios of everything else in the deck, I didn't want to take anything else out. So I feel like 2 was a good enough number for him. So yeah. But it is really nice to have Blaster Dark in a deck with Blaster Blade, you know, the 2 different standard versions of them. So that's very nice to have. And yeah. By the way, for those that aren't aware, you can play Blaster Dark in a premium Royal Paladin deck because Majesty Lord Blaster exists from back in the day, and that of course requires you to play Blaster Dark and Blaster Blade in the same deck. So it's a special rule that Royal Paladin have, but yeah, it's only Blaster Dark that you get access to there. But hey, it's a good unit to play, so I definitely recommend playing 2 of them. Then we have 2 copies of Light and Dark Llew, of course. I've always liked this card in Royal decks for Premium just because of the multi-attack it generates, but it's also a lot better now because we have Blaster Barcgal in this deck, which you can also activate its skill with as well. And because we can go fetch Blaster Blade with Llew as well, we can get that counter charge with Barcgal and Blaster Blade, which is definitely very nice to do again. That was a standard thing you used to do a lot in the G deck back in the G era. So it's very nice to have that play available. So I like having the 2 Llew, just because I also play the 2 copies of Starcall Trumpeter down here. Now, Starcall Trumpeter is a card that I played in the Majesty Lord Blaster deck. I did a time leap of that not too long ago, and it was, you know, to my surprise, it was actually a viable unit to play. And when I was looking at builds, it was a viable option because literally when you call it to Vanguard, you counterblast 2 to search your deck for any grade 2 or lower blaster unit and call it to rearguard circle. Now, it's not open rearguard circle, which means you can call over it. You can call over the Trumpeter, which is actually very nice because this makes it more consistent for Messianic to get the skill off to get the 6 crit. So yeah, I quite like it, but I only like playing 2 of it personally because I like keeping the 2 Light and Dark Llew in here in terms of the ratios. Like I say, it's like more times than often in terms of the ratios. I can't put extra copies of stuff in or out just because I don't want to take something else out or in. You know what I mean? So yeah. But another aspect is that I don't like playing more than 2 of this just because it is an 8k and it's not a blaster. So I don't want to end up riding this thing for grade 2, which would just suck. It hasn't happened yet, but it could happen, and I don't want it to happen. So yeah, I'm happy with just playing 2 of it. But it's very cool to have. You know, it's an old, the old MLB used to play it, so it's quite nice the fact that the new MLB with Messianic can play it as well, and it's actually pretty good for the strategy. So I quite like that. So for the grade 1s, we have the 4 Blaster Barcgal, of course, for the counter charge and also boosting our Light and Dark Llew. So that's very nice to have, but only 3 of them. Like I said, with ratios, I only played 3 because I wanted to put the 1 copy of Laurel in here, which doesn't particularly do anything special. It's got resist, if anything, but its skill works with King of Knights Alfred, which of course we don't play. But again, it's mainly just for a blaster name because it's Blaster Javelin Laura. So yeah, it's actually quite nice for a ride target if you end up opening with it, which is quite nice since all of your other grade 1s you'd like to keep available. So yeah, it's a nice one-off just for an extra name. And then we have the standard boys of Blaster Javelin and also Blaster Dagger. So I have to say, Javelin is probably my favorite of these 2 just because it gets 2k when boosting if you have a Blaster Vanguard. So it's always going to be a 10k booster, which is very, very nice to have. And the fact that it can bind a front row rear guard as well for no cost as long as you've got 6 different blasters, pretty damn good. Yeah, pretty damn good. So Javelin is probably the best one, I would say. Dagger's okay, you know, he gives all of your blasters boost, and he can return himself back to your hand, so that's not too bad in terms of being a bit more defensive. But yeah, I think 2 and 2 is just a nice ratio on that, just, you know, for the different names that they both have as well. So that's that. And then we have the non-blaster grade ones, which is going to be 2 copies of the standard Perfect Guard. Now, the reason I'm playing the standard version of this and not like the old PGs like I was on my Alfred deck, like the old Iseult, it's because the old Perfect Guards require you to discard a card of the same clan. So the old Iseult says you have to discard a Royal Paladin in order to get the Nullify off. With this one, it just says discard a card, and that's it. So I don't want to be caught off guard and not have, like, you know, let's say I'm stuck with Blaster Dagger in my hand and I want to use that to discard for the Perfect Guard, and I can't because I need a Royal Paladin one. But with the standard one, it's just discard a card, any card, and you're fine. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I quite like that. But yeah, the 2 Perfect Guard for the grade 1, just because we want to do the mirroring shenanigans for the deck Perfect Guards. That's pretty nice there. And then we have the 2 Stride Fodder as well to go with the rest of the deck, just for consistency when it comes to striding. The one thing I do like about this deck is that Agnos is actually a pretty good target to go for, depending on what your hand's like, because if you're having a bit of an issue when it comes to like Stride Fodder, it's always nice to go for the Agnos, since it's pretty consistent to go into it, since you have the 3 Exceed and the 4 Messianic, and then you can just stride for free from that point, which is actually not too bad, since we typically want to be calling a field anyway, so doing that with Agnos and then drawing 3 cards is actually not a bad thing to do. So yeah, getting the free stride effect from Agnos is actually pretty cool, and yeah, I think the 2 Stride Fodder and then the grade 3s up here is a nice ratio in terms of having access units to use for Stride Fodder. So for the starter, we have Wingal Brave, of course, which is, yeah, this starter has been around for a while, hasn't it? I think it's actually the same set that Trumpeter came out of as well. I think it's BT5, I think, or something like that. But yeah, of course, Wingal Brave. Why wouldn't we play it? When it boosts the blaster unit and that attack hits, put it into the soul to search your deck for any blaster and add it to hand. So yeah, really damn good. And it's actually one of the reasons why blasters are really consistent as well. So yeah, very nice to have this in the deck. Then we have the triggers. So of course we have the 4 premium critical, the 4 Paladin Flogal, and the 2 standard Flogal actually. So we're playing 10 criticals here. I quite like going for more of a crit heavy build in this deck, just because I feel like if you're not going to do the OTK with Messianic, you want to focus more on like the original strategy that Alfred was doing, where it was focusing on Blaster Blade with the force markers and yeah, just getting his power really high and getting extra critical. So I feel like 10 crit is respectable enough. And yeah, I mean, I just prefer criticals. That's all I can say, really. But for the other triggers, we do have 2 copies of the Draw PG here, just because since we are playing the 2 grade 1 PGs, I wanted to put the other 2 Sentinels in the deck through the triggers, so the 2 Draw PGs will do that nicely. And then we have the 2 Unflip heal triggers. So these are the Countercharge, Soul Charge heal triggers. When you do a G-Guardian, you can bind another heal trigger from your drop zone with it to get a Countercharge or a Soul Charge. And I actually think that's quite nice, because resource management in this deck is actually quite important and quite effective when it comes to the late game, especially when it comes to, like, using your Flogal skill. Yes, you do have access to like Gancelot and Barcgal for unflips, but it's also nice to have other ways of doing it, just to have more resource management overall. So I think it's quite nice to have these. And we have the 2 standard healers as well. So as a ratio overall, I kept it so that I've got 10 10k power triggers and then 6 5k power triggers. So the 6 being these, and then the 10 10k ones being these ones here. So I quite like that ratio. I think that's quite nice. And like I said, I like the 10 crit in this deck, just in terms of the perspective of getting Blaster Blade very threatening with your Flogal restands. So that's very nice there. So the last thing but not least, we have the G zone. So we have the 2 Gancelot, the 2 Alfred, the 2 Altmile, and the 2 Saint of Twinsword. This hasn't changed. Don't plan it to be either, because I think this is literally the same lineup I had in Alfred. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I can't really think of anything else to put in. So any suggestions for the G zone, I'm more than open to it. Which we'll get to that in a sec, actually, because someone helped me out with the G zone. So then we have Agnos and Ultimate, of course, for like starter stuff for the free striding, which is actually pretty nice, and then Ultimate for an endgame card. And then we have the G Guardians of Dismal to protect more important units like Blaster Blade, in case you want to keep that on the board for something like Flogal. The 1 Mascal for more extra GB count, which is good for the Ultima, in case you want to do it early, or you want to just get more things face up in the G zone for your Saint of Twinsword to get more power. Then we have one copy of the continuous G-Guard effect. So I can't remember this guy's name. I think it's like Andrigus or something like that. I have no idea. But yeah, the name of it will be in the description. I can't pronounce it, but yeah, this is the continuous G-Guardian. So OTT have a G-Guard, a G unit that says that your auto abilities don't work. Bit of a problem, because all of your G-Guards are auto abilities, so all of their effects don't work, which kind of sucks. But this guy is a continuous effect, which means this one still works. So again, shout out to the guy that recommended it to me in my Alfred video. So yeah, I did get one, and I've put it in here, and it's very nice. So thank you very much for that recommendation. So like I said, if any of you guys have got any more recommendations for it, I'm more than open to them. So yeah, this is actually quite a nice addition for the G-Guardians. So to finish off, we have the one Iseult, of course, just for massive shield value, since we're going to have a pretty nice board size anyway, so Iseult can get pretty high numbers there. And then we have the two Merrin, of course, for the deck G-Guard, for the perfect guard, of course. And the nice thing is that we have standard grade ones in here with Dagger and Javelin, so we could go for them if we don't have access to the perfect guard from the deck. So that's pretty nice there. And then we have the Force 1, of course, which I think overall is better to go for just in terms of power columns and just applying pressure. So yeah, Force 1 is what I prefer in this deck. But yeah, that is it for the deck overall. Like I said, this deck is very fun to play, just because I'm a massive blaster fanatic. I love my blasters, and having the mixture of the standard blasters mixed with the old G blasters and some of the older cards as well, like Trumpeter. And we also have Light and Dark Llew, synergizing with the deck overall, just in terms of the blaster name. So that's very nice. And I'd recommend this deck to anyone that would like to try a blaster deck. You know, if you picked up the blaster deck in standard, I'd definitely recommend trying to turn that into a premium deck, because I'd probably say that this deck's a lot more fun in premium with things like Messianic than the standard version of Messianic is in general. So yeah, that's it for the deck, guys. This is actually going to be the last premium deck that I'm going to do on the channel for now. Whether I do some in the future, I have no idea. But yes, we will be doing some more standard stuff, because we've got some sets coming out soon. We have a Grand Blue set coming out, which I'm looking forward to. And then, of course, we have at the end of August, Golds and Royals with some new cards, so looking forward to that. Oh boy, rip my wallet, Rip my wallet. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Leave a like if you liked the video, and I will catch you guys in the next video. So like always, guys, take care, have a nice day, and this is Guardian, signing out.